It's kind of like if the TV shows The X-Files and Stranger Things had a baby, and that TV baby grew up to be a big-budget Hollywood movie. That's right, today we're going to be talking about the 2018 sci-fi movie Annihilation. This movie is written and directed by Alex Garland, and it is starring Natalie Portman as Lena, Jennifer Jason Leigh as Ventrix, and Gina Rodriguez as Anya Thornton. Annihilation is rated R for violence, some bloody imagery, language, and some sexuality. So this itty-bitty review of Annihilation is going to be a fairly brief, spoiler-free discussion that's mostly going to talk about one of the strengths and then wrap it up with a recommendation and an overall rating. Usually I'll talk about some of the weaknesses as well, but with Annihilation it's one of those movies where within every category of my grid it scored very high. So I'm going to do something a little bit different with this review, and instead of talking about one of the weaknesses of the film, I'm going to talk about the controversy of the perceived whitewashing within this movie. So if you're not aware, Annihilation is based on the first of a trilogy of books written by Jeff VanderMeer. In the second of that trilogy of books, Natalie Portman's character is described as being Asian, and Jennifer Jason Leigh's character is described as being Native American. So Annihilation is getting a lot of backlash for not casting those characters accurately. I haven't read them. I guess I should start with that disclaimer. I haven't read the trilogy of books, but if the physical description of the characters is not revealed until the second book, it leads me to believe that that part of who the character is not important to the story. Not to say that it's not important to the character. Obviously, heritage is always important. But it really sounds like it was kind of almost an afterthought and just put into the second book. And that said, it's still always good to get diversity in film, and both Asians and Native Americans are vastly underrepresented in media. So it's still a talking point. It's still, I understand why people might be disappointed about the casting, but I still just don't think it quite qualifies as whitewashing. Because also I think it's important to note that Alex Garland, in discussing his adaptation of this movie, has talked very openly about how he got Jeff VanderMeer's approval before he did this. He read the first book and wanted to adapt it, but he wanted to do it in a different way. He didn't want to reread the book and adapt it in a very literal kind of sense. I wish I could remember where I read this quote, but to paraphrase, he said he wanted it to feel like a dream of the book. So he didn't reread the first book, and he didn't read the second two books within the trilogy. And like I said, he got Jeff VanderMeer's approval to do this. He thought that was a really interesting way to approach it. So in that respect, it's not even a literal adaptation, and there is a significant amount of diversity within the cast. Have Oscar Isaac, Gina Rodriguez, Tessa Thompson, and even beyond racial diversity, there's a cultural diversity, as far as the actors at least. You have Natalie Portman is Israeli, and Tuva Novotny is Swedish. I mean, it's a cast of 5 female leads. So there's just a great diversity and representation of women from around the world and women of different ethnicities. So I just think there's a lot to celebrate within this movie, and getting upset over the fact that it's allegedly whitewashed just seems to be missing the bigger picture and is missing a lot of opportunity to celebrate what this movie has to offer. Like I said at the beginning of this ramble, whitewashing is a huge issue in Hollywood, and it should be addressed. But I mean, this movie is not Emma Stone playing a Native Hawaiian character. This is a diverse group of women in a very loose adaptation of a book where, I mean, in the first book, race was never mentioned. So I think it's a fair cast, and I think it's does a good job of having a variety of different types of people to just not see it because of that controversy. I think that's a shame. So that's instead of talking about a weakness, I just wanted to talk about that a little bit and just put my thoughts out there on that. So yeah, that's what I have to say about the casting of the movie. So for the strength of Annihilation, like I said at the top of this review, every category got very, very strong scores throughout my grid. The only category that got a perfect score is going to be the sound. And I can't really give too many concrete examples of the sound design and how well it worked throughout the movie, just because this is obviously a spoiler-free review. But pretty much everything within the sound category was just phenomenally strong. The score is one of the best I've heard in possibly ever, and I should qualify what I mean by best is that it really became a part of the story in a way that really isn't done too much. You know, it didn't just enhance emotions or the mood or things like that. I mean, it did that too, but it really became a part of the story in ways that just I don't really see done often. So the score was really strong. And then within the sound mix, it's one of those movies where it's very quiet, but you hear everything, and it was just really beautifully done, to the point where I can't wait for it to come out on a home release so I can just put headphones on and crank up the audio and really get the audio experience. But yeah, the sound mix was just phenomenally done. And then the sound design, I'm not going to get into any examples, but it was some of the best sound design I've heard since hearing the T-Rex roar in Jurassic Park for the first time. It was just, so yeah, the sound category in just every area was absolutely perfect, and was the only category within the grid to get a perfect score. So the total score for Annihilation is going to be a 91.8 out of 100, which I consider to be a great movie. It's not a perfect movie. It does have some weaknesses, some areas where it could have been just a little bit better, but overall, extremely solid. It's one of those movies where every category within the grid really works to tell the story, which is really rare. Now that said, it is definitely a harder sci-fi movie, so I don't think it's going to be for everybody. It's as far as the tone and the pace of the movie goes, it's a little bit more similar to, say, Arrival or either of the Blade Runner movies. Just as far as it's got a little bit of a slower pace. The trailers make it look like it's more of a maybe like a Predator action sci-fi kind of movie, which it definitely has elements of that, but it's definitely, you're looking at a slower paced movie here. But I definitely think if you like sci-fi movies, particularly those harder sci-fi movies like Arrival or Blade Runner, it's definitely a different movie than those, but I think that's a good mark of, if you'll like this movie. So that's my just kind of generalized recommendation, but this is really just a phenomenal movie. I loved it. It's probably going to be easily top 5 of 2018, and yeah, just a great movie, really getting close to that perfect range. And I do feel like this is one of those movies where upon repeated viewings, I'll catch more, and I'll see something I didn't see before, and I'll connect dots that I didn't connect before, and that score is likely to rise with each viewing and get a little bit closer to perfect each time, just because it's such a layered movie, and there's so much going on and so much to unpack and analyze, and there's just a lot going on. So I do think that score is likely to rise as I watch it more times. And I do plan to watch it more times. I've already seen it twice before doing this review. I'd like to see it at least one more time while it's in theaters. And then I know I'm going to buy it once it comes out for home release, and I'm sure it's going to be one of those movies that I watch, at least once a year, just to refresh my memory and see what else I get from it, because it's just that kind of movie. So yeah, that's it for this spoiler-free review of Annihilation. If you'd like a more in-depth review and analysis for Annihilation, be sure to check out my nitty-gritty review, where I'll go through every category of my grid and really delve into what makes this movie work and why I gave it such a high score. And that's about it for this itty-bitty review. I'll see you next week when I review Red Sparrow. Hey, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you liked what you saw, don't forget to subscribe to Griddy Films on YouTube by pressing this button. Also, like and share this video. You can follow Griddy Films on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for new video announcements, entertainment news, fun pics, and more. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.